an Instagram Live. Getting some books off of the bookshelf. Not easy. It's definitely a little bit of a mess in here, but I want to break down a little bit of what I'll be doing at the Cincinnati Strength and Conditioning Clinic with my boy, Jeremy Hartman. So hope you guys are great. Let's see. My office is a brutal mess. But you know what? Buddy Morris said that's okay. He said it's all right. Jim, how are you, buddy? Okay, so had a great day today. Great day. All right, let's check this out. Let's flip this around. Here we go. Some books. This one, guys, you could print this out. It's my underground strength manual. I give it to the interns. You could look how big this is. It's close to 500 pages. I remember taking these photos. We're looking in early 30s. I'm now 49. I remember taking photos. I remember taking photos here with a digital camera. Okay, by the way, great way to get your shoulders strong AF. Okay, Julia Carson in the house. So this was really kind of there are years of workouts in the back of this book. Years of workouts. Check this out. From competition at Joe DeFranco's World's Strongest Man. Look at this. The expert focuses on results. The amateur seeks fads and gimmicks. And give credit. Imagine that. Jim Kiertzy and Rudy Reyes. Hopefully I'll see Rudy at Winter Strong. But I remember training at this playground. You could see sandbag, kettlebells in the back. Little ruck here with a bunch of pea gravel thrown in there. Can't remember what it was, like 40 pounds or something. Bent over rows. Training in the garage. So the interns have to read this. Training in the backyard. This is my first house right here. Football players doing walking swings across the backyard. You could see even our technique was off. Not extending the hips, leaning back a little bit. Remember this kid, Zach? I was his teacher through elementary school. Was a great football and lacrosse player. Played in college and now does sports psychology. There are years of workouts in this training manual. Years. And so lots of sample training programs. But of course, we're gonna do some questions here. So got a text message from Elliot Hulse. He's like, Zach, I love when you bust out the older books. This book was, god dang. This book was gifted to me by my guy, Henri Skiba, Skiba's Barbell and Carteret. Look at the size of this, okay? It's bigger than Arnold's Encyclopedia, bigger than Zach Evanesh's Encyclopedia of Underground Strength, but it's great to go to these books and just be reminded of the different training methods. Jim Waldron, what school was that you filmed at? I'm not sure which one where I filmed, but I've been coaching at Middletown South. This is my 6th year. Vincent, these pictures look familiar from when I first started learning about you. Yep, what's up? Matt McGee, what's up? Crystal Aguilar, did I miss anybody? The Wild Jim, what's up? Guys, I'm going to flip this around. I got a lot of stuff coming up. March 1st, I'm going to be in Ohio, Cincinnati. Okay, Beat Fitness in the Oakley section of Cincinnati. I'll be there with Jeremy Hartman. And March 14th, NHSCA State Clinic. March 20th, I'll be in Philly with my boy Joe DeSena. And then sponsoring a 5K race. You could see there's always a lot of things going on. So let's flip this around. And I would love to do some Q&A, but let's just go a little bit through here. Lying, decline, close grip, tricep curl to chin. You don't see a whole lot of this going on anymore. The standing incline benches, kneeling, hits your abs very hard. And look at the time that must have been put into somebody who had to pencil sketch this. This I don't think was done with a computer back when this was made. All different kinds of shoulder raises. Important to switch things up and have variety. So last book, let me flip it around for you. This was a gift to me from Jim Wendler. I've shared many videos on this. This was gifted to him by Dr. Ken Leisner. Makes it even more special. Hopefully I'll see Jim when I go to Ohio. And there's the famous photo of Bill Peanuts West training with the Zoovers plates in his garage gym. This is block pulls. Today people do them from a rack. But guys, these are from 1968 through 1972, okay? Years before I was born. I was born in 1975. George Friend, Olympic hammer thrower, amazing. 775-pound deadlift. Look at those weights, pressing through the pins. This also became famous with Anthony DiTillo and York barbell isometric racks. Early days box squats. They called it the power rack bench squat. The older the book, the better. Agreed. And I hate sitting down to do the Q&A. Probably going to stand up. My late husband taught me the inclines. Yes, would love to hear more about that. You remind me of how many books I've got to read on my desk. Too many books here. Upstairs near on my nightstand, I've got books on leadership, on mindset, and you could see here there's even, we got to get rid of some of this stuff. More books. Now, who would think I'd be reading books on how to win an argument, the Book of Five Rings, but when you get into coaching, it's amazing how many people will oppose you. Kind of heartbreaking. Something I speak about to athletes all the time. You guys could take a look at it on my Mid-South Strength and Conditioning page. But I talk to them about the same message is out there. Let's see, can we do this? The same message is out there, meaning... This really needs to go something like this. Meaning, you come across any motivational Instagram. They're all around. They're everywhere. Okay, Gavin, what's up, buddy? And what do they say? They speak about commitment, consistency, hard work, doing extra. They speak about being coachable, not getting offended by coaches when they give you feedback, and that is a major problem today. With athletes. So was speaking with Donnie Thompson today through text messages. Sometimes I kind of ebb and flow with the amount of kettlebell training I do. And Donnie and I were talking about, I was listening to, he doesn't do much podcast, but he did videos with Dr. Aaron Horsching, Squat University. So you guys can find that on Apple and Spotify. You could see the videos. But Donnie was talking about the use of kettlebells, single kettlebells, double kettlebells, the influence he had from Pavel Tsatsouline and how it really helped his durability. And I asked Donnie, I said, what's interesting? You bring it up a little bit, not too often, but he's the first man, Michael, what's up, buddy, that broke the 3,000-pound total. Not only that, Donnie was 46 years old when he did that. You got to understand, most people at age 46 are struggling to get off the couch. Most people, not the people watching this video, but most adults are really at an extremely weak place in their mid-40s. Donnie broke the 3,000-pound total. He doesn't give all the credit to kettlebells, but he says the kettlebells, the conditioning, the hip power, the GPP, the power in general that it gave him was, priceless. And so I think today, and somebody got mad at me on X or Twitter or whatever, and usually people are just a bunch of babies. I don't feed into their negativity. Wow, 36 and field 21. Strength training is the fountain of youth. So I was talking to Donnie about training linemen. And so the big issue I see is linemen, they're getting too big. They're just carrying too much body fat, and they have very poor relative body strength. They can't do pull-ups. Although if you speak to Jim Wendler, he said their linemen at his school are not that big. I could have sworn he said something like 220 pounds, some of them not even. And they all got to do at least 10 pull-ups. That is the standard. And because he's in a smaller school, I think some of his kids also wrestle. Offensive linemen need to get on the wrestling team, even if they just do it for a year, 2 years. Of course, I'd love to see them do it longer. But the conditioning, the hand fighting, the full body strength and toughness they develop, You can't do that through the weight room. You just cannot. And I remember being at the wrestling banquet a couple of years ago, and a very good football player, he was a D lineman, he plays college football. He said, everybody says that wrestling is different, wrestling is tough. And he said, I'm going to tell you right now, wrestling is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's harder than football. Listen, of course, it's harder. It's a different kind of hard, right? Football has hard with the one-on-one battling, sometimes 2 or 3 versus 1, taking the hits repeatedly after a game. It's very difficult. I really believe that if I would have played football and lifted with the football team, I would have been a better wrestler. But going back to that, I told Donnie, the kids openly say, I don't want to wrestle. It's too hard. Well, today I was training with a lineman doing kettlebell training, and it was a big struggle for him, not even going that heavy. And it brought me to other thoughts and conversations I've had with Joe Ken, Big House Power, where he said when he was at the Carolina Panthers, he was there for 9 years, I think. He's like, dude, these linemen can't move. They can't bend. It's almost like they need to get red-shirted. And so what does that mean? Your training must make you more athletic. It shouldn't just make you big. I called this a long time ago, strong and useless. When we had a lineman come to us as he prepped to go to college, he had all the records on his high school wall for squat, bench, clean, trap bar deadlift, but he couldn't do bodyweight lunges. He could not do a pull-up. If he did farmer walks after one set, the weights would fly out of his hand because his grip strength would go out. He would do a set of prowler pushes, and I swear to you, I thought I was about to call 911. Now, going back to the kettlebells, I think to myself, it forces you to bend. It forces you to have better posture. So things like doing double kettlebell squats, kettlebell snatches, double kettlebell clean and press, fat bells, doing the double fat bell snatch. And then other things I did today, which is why I brought out my underground strength manual. I think back to the freedom and the creativity we had when I did not own a gym. Part of the training protocol back then was we'd spend about 20 minutes in my garage, strength training, powerlifting, weightlifting. Then we'd spend 15 minutes in my backyard, climbing ropes, swinging sledgehammer, carrying tree logs. Then 15 to 20 minutes down the street, I would pack up my truck. We'd go to the playground, hill sprints, sled drags, pushing my truck. By the way, after hill sprints, we would get to the top of the hill and we would hand fight. I would make football players sumo wrestle against each other. I basically copied that from World's Strongest Man, watching those videos of Bill Kazmaier. Athletic Club Beast. There was a study of NFL guys. They die at the average age of 59 from cardiovascular disease from being too big. You'll see college football players, same thing. When you look at my Gladiator Strong before and after photos, one of the kids we trained was an O-lineman at a Division III school, so he hovered between 275 and 285. As soon as that was over, he went on like a real strict diet. He increased strength training with us, and he started hovering around like 210, 212, and you could just see he looks amazing. I did miss some comments here. Let me see if I could go back. Obviously, we can and should do more than that, but it doesn't take much for health. Jim Waldron, I have a CFL player coming back from a torn bicep. We're working lots of unilateral and kettlebells. Yep, very good. I've always said that if all you did was squat the empty bar for a few sets of 5 a couple times a week, you would never need a walking frame, those walking crutches. And so, yes, that's why they say squatting is... it's like a predictor of your long-term health. So back to conversations with Donnie Thompson. He was a lineman, and I remember when the guys were still in the NFL at the Chicago Bears, Olin Kreutz and Roberto Garza, they spent 2 weeks with him, and they told me it was the best training of their life. That was kind of early days of body tempering, early days of fat bells, but they had their max effort days, their speed days. They were training outside with sled work and probably throwing the fat bells. Those are things that I would be doing that would take us kind of outside normal weight room training. And when I'm looking at the training today on Instagram, so to speak, in the colleges, we see squats, cleans. We see benching. Sometimes we see dumbbell work. I don't see really any farmer walks. I see sprinting, change of direction work. I'd like to see more sled sprints. I'd like to see different kinds of jumping, not just hurdle jumps. I'd like to see box jumps, kneeling jumps, weighted jumps, contrast jumps. Jump the hurdles with 20-pound dumbbells. Drop them. Jump them again. I throw bricks. Yeah, well, one of the great NFL players, I wish I could remember his name. I'm not a big NFL fan, but his dad would throw him bricks, and he would catch them. I wish I could remember who it was, but he was a legend in the NFL. I'm just not a big. I don't get to sit down and live the football, TV life. But back to the kind of these different styles of training. Yeah, Jim, sled sprints with sled pulls. I'm pretty sure Jim did the underground strength coach certification. So, I feel like our training is so there you go. Jerry Rice, thank you, Stu. He used to catch bricks. And then who do we have that would run hills? That was the Sweetness, Walter Payton. He would run hills, and so did somebody else, but they didn't do shorter hill sprints. They had kind of these long distance hill sprints to get them in shape. And I think we've really gotten away from that. God forbid we have an athlete run a mile or run a 400 meter. Why? They need to be in shape to withstand the rigors of practice and the rigors of the season. So it's a little bit frustrating when I see kind of the same stuff. We're going to squat, we're going to bench, we're going to clean. Yes, I get that. But I want to see, thank you, Jim. Yep, he did both certifications. I want to see more movement. I want to see walking on hands, and I would love to see some wrestling incorporated into training. I remember Coach Reeve told me this well over 20 years ago when he was at Wake Forest. He said, Coach Reeve was a two-time All-American. He said he would teach the football linemen how to hand fight. And Nate Stout, one of our coaches at the Underground, our head coach, one of his buddies does jiu-jitsu. And so before training, he had one of the guys, he said, hey man, hand fight with me, grapple with me for 5 minutes. And the guy that wasn't used to it, his forearms blew up, his neck was sore. That stuff is great. And I just shared the video of Uzbekistan wrestlers training. A lot of times they blend some wrestling work interspersed with that kind of physical preparation. One of the messages I was trying to hammer home about that video was that you see these world-class wrestlers literally competing at the international world level, the Olympic level, and their strength and conditioning technique is not really great. They're doing push-ups with their trunk sagging. I know a lot of people say core, with the core sagging down, head down. They're doing kettlebell exercises that are kind of weird. Their back is in a shitty position. They don't do the greatest technique. And everything is this fast-paced, aggressive training. That feeds the mentality of a wrestler. And so that's obviously very, very important. That has a transfer of training when you match the training to the psychology of the athlete. The one thing that is missing is proper technique with strength, proper strength training exercises. So I don't think that their training is wrong, but it's missing links. They're filling the wrong buckets because they're already wrestling extremely aggressively. Now, why could they get away with training the quote-unquote wrong way? Well, they've been getting coached by world-class coaches since the day they stepped on a mat. In America, most of the recreation coaches are dads that are volunteering, that don't have the best knowledge. They're not trained in coaching. Back in the 70s and prior, the Soviet Union sport coaches were also the strength coaches. They called them a physical preparation coach. And they would have a master's degree or a PhD in the long jump. Alexander Karelin got his PhD in defense against the suplex, which was his move in Greco-Roman wrestling. Jim Waldron saying, what do you think about step-ups with the medicine ball overhead press? I think it's too much, right? Can you do step-ups with a plate held overhead? Yes. What if I'm doing step-ups with 2 kettlebells overhead? Now it becomes too dangerous. It becomes, I could do that in another way. Coach Reb Brock, I believe, and I had him on my podcast about a month ago. You can look at his videos. Impeccable technique. He's got a day where they kind of focus, I think, on mobility and positions. So you'll see a kid in the overhead position holding a plate while doing an isometric deep lunge or a deep split squat. To me, that stuff is favorable. What would I like to see in the wrestling from the Uzbekistan wrestlers? I love the hill sprints. I love the rope climbs. I love the jump training. I would like to see some basic strength work. You know I love carries. I'd love to see a sumo deadlift or Zercher squats, but I'd love to see proper positioning. What I'm seeing from these kind of overseas wrestlers is they're just aggressive and they're intense, and that makes up for the imperfect training. Now, when I look at the majority of wrestlers, not high, the high-level wrestlers are already very aggressive, very intense with training. But when we look at like our high school athletes, they don't have that intensity. They don't. I'll tell you why. They're too busy running around trying to find a coach, trying to find another training area. Whereas in Uzbekistan or Japan or Dagestan, it's right there. You have one place to wrestle, one place for training. They're not running all over the place. And so those imperfections are, erased essentially because of the world-class wrestling. And that's the most important thing in sport. You want to be a great football player? Get great at football and have great football IQ. Study the game. Want to be great at soccer? Same thing. You could squat more than anybody else, but if you're not becoming great at soccer, it doesn't even matter. And that's why your training shouldn't try to mimic and interfere with the skill of your sport. That's why basics with some tweaks, with some of the special strength exercises, which I'm going to cover at my seminar in Cincinnati, those are good to do. Those are important to do. In wrestling and for combat sports, I love the kettlebell training. I love Zercher squats. When we are in the seminar in Cincinnati, I'm going to do some kettlebell training, jump training, and I'm going to talk about the differences and the different exercises I choose when it comes to youth athletes versus high school athletes, and the things that you may think I did at the college sector, but I actually didn't do. So who's got a question or two before I shut it down? I really rambled on. I got a lot on my mind when it comes to training. And actually, training to me is the favorite thing to talk about. I just did a ton of kind of behind the scenes business stuff for the Underground Strength Gym. I'm much more of a fan of talking training. So if anybody's got questions, I'd like to answer one or two. I'm seeing if I missed anything. I did not miss anything. All right, would love to answer a question or two. So no, I mentioned Pavel Tsatsouline. I have all his books. This book is extremely basic. This book right here is just like swings and push-up protocol. I am more of a fan of what you would find in those early days West Side books because of all the variations, the variety of lifts. Those are very important for athletes. Most athletes really enjoy the variety that they get from different exercises, and it minimizes and reduces chances of those overuse injuries from always squatting and benching with a straight bar. By the way, I'm working with a company now on a specialty bar, and so I will, release that news when the time is right. Athletic Club Beast. I see a lot of adolescent males with their ankles rolling in, especially when they squat. Do they tend to outgrow this? I love that. What I've noticed is we could get really carried away with trying to fix ankle flexion, but you know what tends to fix it? Movement prep. Skipping, jogging, side shuffling, karaoke, walking lunges, walking on your toes, jumping rope. It fixes that. Playing multiple sports. So before you going into the weight room, can you play a game of ultimate frisbee, ultimate football, pickup basketball? It depends what's at your disposal. And then sled training, sled drags, sled pushes of all types, and doing things like Bulgarian split squats. Those things start to help the athlete strengthen the ankles, get ankle stability and ankle mobility. Crystal says, what kind of cardio do you recommend for female athletes, specifically combative arts?
So depending on the martial art or the combat sport, usually we need strength endurance, power endurance. So that comes through some form of circuit training or repeated bouts of power. So kettlebell complexes, barbell complexes, mixing in things such as sprints on like a echo bike or some sort of rower or ski erg. And if you don't have access to those things, it could be something like a quick, 3-cone relay run, 10 push-ups, 10 recline row, 10 frog jumps, 10 hanging abs, repeat it, and then you could do what's called general specific training. Whereas if you're a jiu-jitsu athlete or an MMA fighter, the round is 5 minutes, you could do 5 minutes of work, 2 minutes of rest, and repeat. I used to do that for wrestlers in college. We would do like 7, 8 minutes or 10 rounds of 3 box jumps, 3 clapping push-ups, 3 speed pull-ups. Why can't we have a clone of you in every school? Unfortunately, especially in New Jersey, the administration is extremely resistant to getting somebody like me into the school. It's really a shame because it's in the best interest of the kids. And even when a guy like me is in the school, there's a lot of resistance I receive from other coaches, from other athletes, from their parents, from the community. So a lot of people, I like to be transparent. A lot of people think it's very easy for me to influence others in a school setting, but it's actually not the case. It's unfortunately not the truth. Non-nomenclature, should I stay doing my workouts 3 days, maybe twice a week jiu-jitsu? I'm looking to be a strength trainer in the near future. Non-nomenclature, send me a DM. Let's get you set up, starting with the Underground Strength Coach certification, then the SSPC certification. If you're doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot meaning 4 or 5 days a week, then your strength training should be kind of a minimalist style twice a week. Most of your cardio is going to be coming through jiu-jitsu, but you can do some steady state cardio. There is a benefit for steady state. A lot of people try to mimic what they're doing in sport, the type of conditioning, and sometimes that bucket overflows. So we need to have a little bit of a balance. And if I miss any questions, just send me a DM. I was told by a wrestler who's pretty intense in my jiu-jitsu class that if I do 3 days jiu-jitsu and 2 days workouts, I'm getting burnt out. More than likely, he is wrong. But again, the answer is it depends. If you're talking about me, a 49-year-old husband, father, business owner, strength and conditioning coach, juggling a million things, that's probably a lot for me. Now, what if you don't have that kind of lifestyle? What if you could recover a lot? What if your nutrition is locked in? Then you're good to go. 5 days a week of training should not kill somebody who's young, healthy, fit, and pays attention to lifestyle, sleep, and nutrition. Yes, my pleasure. Non-nomenclature, you got the Underground Strength Coach cert, then you go to the SSPC cert, or you go inside the Underground Strength Academy and you dig deep and start doing more research on articles you haven't read, and you need to review the Underground Strength Coach certification again. Generelli, what's up, buddy? How would you suggest incorporating strength training in training for an Ironman, you savage? Now, one thing I don't do is pretend to be an expert in an area. I would do some Googling to see who has prepped for Ironman. What have they done? You're going to definitely utilize a minimalist strength training program, and all your conditioning is going to come from specificity. One of our coaches back in the day did a triathlon. It wasn't an Ironman. And I remember he would ride his bike to the gym. Something like 12, 13 miles. He would do a training session. I clearly remember him doing a strongman training session. He would tire flip. It's on our YouTube. He would tire flip the 600 plus pound tire. He would farmer walk the 200 plus pound farmer handles in each hand. Then he would ride his bike home. We had a guy that was prepping for Special Forces selection, and he would ruck to the gym. He would train, and then in between sets, he was doing what other work. And I remember he'd show up early, and we called it an appetizer workout. He would do kettlebells. He just had such a motor on him, and the reason being is His mindset. He was tough. He wanted it. You could only push people as much as they want to be pushed. So my boy Rob, do some Googling, do some searching, see what other successful people have shared on YouTube. But I'm definitely going to recommend you're probably going to be doing 2 short, minimalist strength style workouts. NFL and CFL players are focusing on moving the body and greasing the joints rather than loading the weight. You know what? But I question this, Jim. If some NFL players, they don't want to squat, they don't want to do. If you don't have the body armor, that may not give you the protection you need to maybe get another year, 2 or 3 years out of the NFL, which could be tens of millions of dollars. That's massive generational wealth. Appreciate your knowledge. My pleasure. Okay, I'm going to get one more question. You listen, the wrestler guy who told you you'll burn out. I hate to tell you, some people pretend to be experts, or they force their experience upon you that the way it impacted them is going to now impact them impact everybody else the same. The Wild Jim said, sad to hear about your reality in the high schools. Our reality is stupid became the norm, and the uneducated is usually also closed-minded. The things that hurt all people, whether it's adults, whether it's kids, is the hatred towards being uncomfortable, the refusal to learning and being open-minded. And so if you think your way is the only way and you can't listen and learn from others, you're really going to struggle. You're not going to be a successful person because you are refusing to learn from the mistakes and lessons of others. You're only saying, hey, there's just this one way to do it, which we all know is not the case for anything. I mean, that goes for anything. That goes, in business, I'm in a business mastermind with my guys at Varsity House Gym. That's the business of strength. Why? Those guys and the members are highly successful. I want to learn from them. I want to bypass mistakes. Why wouldn't I want to learn? I mentioned earlier Donnie Thompson. I've mentioned the original Westside Barbell articles. We're talking about massive book by Bill Pearl, and there's many of these books. He's got a couple editions of this book. Even me, sometimes I need a reminder of my own book to see how hard we trained. A lot of times I'm like, man, I think I got too smart. I started adjusting volume too much. So I'm going to just see if I could find, those are introductory workouts here. This is like a GPP day for fighters, outdoor strongman circuit. I could see that this was just too perfect. Tire flip, 4 sets of 4. This was a circuit we did with the college wrestlers. Come inside, double kettlebell push press, 4 sets of 5. Then double kettlebell row. Then they would do sleds, tire partner push, tire jumps on and off, rebound jumps, push-ups with feet elevated on the tire, sledgehammer strikes, 100 reps. Dude, I remember just breaking the rules of training. That is when we got our best. This Sunday, I've got a weightlifting coach coming to my gym for a seminar. I could coach, but he's better than me, and my lifters come first. Yes, I want to make other people better, and that's why I'm still learning. When I do my seminar in Cincinnati with Jeremy Hartman, you think when Jeremy talks, I'm just going to ignore him and be on my phone? I'll be there learning so I could come back and get better. And I started coaching in 1995. See, these workouts I could see here, they're so perfectly organized, but they're good. They're tough. Sandbag training, sumo deadlifts. When I look at these workouts, I'm going to flip it around here. We used to do a lot of this, push-ups with chains. We'd be at the park, we'd be doing push-ups, stretching through whatever that apparatus was, some sort of climbing apparatus. Handstand push-ups. This was very hard. Kicking up on the wall. Kids would fall and wipe out. Today, I would never do it. Oh no, somebody's going to fall. Back in the day, we didn't give a shit. We'd say, get back up. Try it again. Doing pull-ups with the Iron Mind Rolling Thunder. weighted pull-ups. This is curls here. Kid was like 235 pounds doing weighted pull-ups with another 40 pounds. We've got kids that weigh 135 pounds that can't do pull-ups. Strength has gone down. Recline rows were always done with a rope. This was one of the more famous photos of my buddy Griffin. We would do pull-ups offset with the rope. Me doing pull-ups on the thick bars at the playground. You can see this is the garage. This was a very tough kid. Took second in the state, Jimmy Bashada. Went on to wrestle for the Merchant Marines. Rope climbs were always double rope. We had that beam. This was the first rope in the backyard. Yeah, dude, Travis Mash and I used to do seminars together. We did our certifications together. Missed that guy. I was actually talking about my guy here today, David Ellis, judo black belt, jiu-jitsu black belt, one of the toughest guys ever. Okay, curls doing ring dips. You can see Griffin was jacked. You can see his back even has striations. Got to get to more of these single leg squats. Don't have that mobility anymore. Got to rebuild it. Back in the day, we didn't have plyo boxes. We had steel plyo boxes or we jumped on tires. Kettlebell training in the early days. That was filmed at Fairleigh Dickinson. Double kettlebell training. We need more of this. Athletes could use a lot of this. I'm actually very shocked to not see kettlebell training in the college sector for football. One arm clean and press. Me and my boy Griffin would load up my truck. Athletic Beast, last question. I like this question. You say that strength has gone down. Quote. Yep, you can quote me. Do you find that the average newbie is weaker now? Absolutely. I trained a women's Army platoon in 95. I think they were stronger than most young men in 2025. You know, I'm not a big fan of what's happened to CrossFit, but I did a CrossFit cert in 2007. I did it on the military base at Quantico, Virginia. And there were Marines in my certification. There was like 80 to 100 people. And there were Marines that back then I was in my 2007. I don't know how. That's almost 20 years ago. Or I was 32. There were Marines in their 40s. They were killing it. They were lean and muscular. Everything you would think a Marine is. Then there were Marines that were like 20, 21. They were getting killed. They were getting just their asses handed to them. You know, half the age of the guys in their 40s, the guys in their 40s had that wiry, muscular look, hardened look from being in the sun and doing decades of calisthenics. And so, yeah, kids today are showing up weaker than ever before. There's a lot of problems because of sports, because of shitty food, and just because, you know, there's all this information out there, but that doesn't mean they're educated. And you know what else is interesting? You know, people ask me, oh man, you must train everybody in your area. You live in a small town. There's a lot of ego in a small town where people will say, hey man, there's no way that guy Zach is an expert. I know him. He lives in our town. There's no way we should be going to him. We got to find somebody else. And so sometimes the definition of an expert is somebody in a different zip code. And so I hate to admit it, but that's how people view things. So the world is, you know, in a strange and crazy place. And but you know what? I'm pretty crazy too. So I don't know. That's all I got for you guys. All right. I'm peacing out of here, guys. I'll post this up to my YouTube. Any questions that I may have missed, please just send me a DM. I'll answer you. And if you want to go to the seminar in Cincinnati, look at the post. You send me Venmo, and we'll see you there. I also set it up on my website, zachevnesh.com/Cincy. CINCI. Peace out, guys. Thank you so much.